Hello friends and welcome to Hombres Necios Explained. I'm Dr. L. Today we're going to take a look at this poem by Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, look at a little bit of background information by the author, and figure out how to write things in Spanish so you can do well on your test, but explain it in English so that you can understand the information at an in-depth level. All right, vamos a empezar. Un poco de información sobre la autora. Su nombre es Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. Ella nació en 1651 y ella murió en 1695. Ella era una monja en México. Su pasión fue estudiar y ella era una de las primeras feministas. So our author today is Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, and Sor translates as sister, as in a religious sister. So she lived in Mexico in the 1600s, and monja translates as nun, and her passion was studying. She loved to study, and that's probably the true reason why she became a nun, because it gave her access to this incredible library where she could study. And she was one of the first feminists to write out her feelings. Right, el movimiento tenemos Barroco y Siglo de Oro de los años 1600 y se caracteriza por su ornamento y su complejidad. Usa metáforas, eufemismos, modo de expresar ideas usando palabras más suaves para el sentido, neologismos, uso de palabras nuevas y alegorías. So the Baroque time period, which is a part of the Spain's golden century or golden age of literature, it comes from the 1600s, and its characteristics are its complexity and its excessive ornamentation to the words and the language. There's going to be metaphors, so one thing's going to represent something else, nothing ever just kind of straightforward. Euphemisms, expressing one idea for something a little bit gentler or politer way of saying it. Neologismos are new ways of saying things or new words, and allegories kind of similar to metaphors or kind of having a background story or in-depth information to something. All right, let's take a look at some recursos literarios. Tenemos cuarteto, estrofa de 4 líneas, redondía, 4 versos con 8 sílabos, y el esquema de rima es A-B-B-A. Hay uso de hiperbatón, and el tono es serio. So these are some literary devices you're going to come across in this poem. You may be asked to identify and cite examples of these in your essay. So a quartet, it means that it's a stanza with 4 lines, and then a redondía is kind of a little bit more specific type of quartet where there are 4 verses and each one has 8. Each line, each verse has 8 syllables, and our rhyme scheme is A-B-B-A. We're going to take a look at an example of that in the next slide. So what hyperbaton is switching the word order around. If you can think of the way Yoda talks, if there's any Star Wars fans out there, he switches the word orders around. Here, Sor Juana is switching the word order around to keep that rhyme scheme going, the A-B-B-A, and in doing so, it can make it a little bit tricky to understand what people are talking about, and the tone is serious. All right, let's take a look at an example here. So we got hombres necios que acusáis a la mujer sin razón, sin ver si sois la ocasión de lo mismo que culpáis. So let's take a look at the rhyme scheme here. Look at the end of the line. We've got acusáis, so that's going to be A or A. And then we've got razón, ocasión, that's going to be BB, and then culpáis. So acusáis, culpáis, we've got A, BB, A, B, B, A. And let's take a look in English how this might translate and see that it's not going to rhyme the same way in English. Let's take a look here. All right, you foolish men that accuse women without reason, without seeing that you're to blame of the same thing that you accuse. So let's take a look here. We got accuse and accuse. Okay, that rhymes because it's the same word, but not in the same way that Spanish does. We've got reason, we've got blame, and so it does not have the same rhyme scheme in English. It does not have the same rhyme scheme. So it's good that we can look at it in English and understand it at a little bit more in-depth level. but we have to be able to read it in Spanish so that we can appreciate how the author intended us to hear it and to understand it. All right, next I want to take a look at my most favorite verse from this whole poem, and here it is. O cual es más de culpar, aunque cualquiera mal haga, la que peca por la paga, o el que paga por pecar. And again, we see that same rhyme scheme throughout the entire poem. This lady is a genius to be able to write like this and continue with this rhyme scheme. We've got culpar, pecar, aga, and paga. We continue with the a, b, b, a, b, b, a rhyme scheme. And let's take a look at how it might translate in English. Or who is more to blame, even if both do act incorrectly, she who sins for a wage, or he who pays for sinning? And you can see that there's absolutely no rhymes between the English version here, but it helps you understand what they're talking about. And so what it's talking about is the double standard at that time between men and women. So it was okay for men to do bad things, but not okay for women to do bad things, or they would take all the blame or all the judgment. All right, so desarrolla el tema de construcción del género dentro del contexto social de México durante el siglo XVII. So take a few moments to think about this theme here. I'm going to provide you an answer in just a little bit, but pause the video if you need some time to work. But think about developing this theme, which is the construction of gender, or just gender equality or inequality, inside of the social context of Mexico during the 1600s or the 17th century. So pause the video if you need some time to work, and I'm going to give you my short response here in just a moment. All right, aquí tenemos. Sor Juana habla de la desigualdad entre los géneros en esta época. Ella era una de las primeras feministas a escribir del doble estándar entre los hombres y las mujeres. Los hombres siempre trataban a seducir a las mujeres, pero solo querían casarse con una mujer virgen, con su honor intacto. So we've got Sister Juana speaks about the inequality between the genders during this time period. She's one of the first feminists to write about this double standard between the men and the women. And an example is that the men always tried to seduce women, but they only wanted to marry a woman that was a virgin with her honor still intact. Okay, so just one example there. Your answers might vary. And that's what we've got, folks. All right, gracias por mirar. Ciao, hasta la vista. Hasta luego. Nos vemos. Hasta pronto.